what he's pointing to is a good thing. Like the finding a way to pop out of that narrowing spiral, um, finding agency, being, effective in turning your life around in a good direction, like developing character and skill and wisdom, like all of that's good stuff. And I don't think that Buddhism is against all of that, but so much of that does not spring from the way the Buddha taught that process. Um, the very fact that he like this comes in the beginning and it comes in at the end. He talks about getting a grip on things. And in Buddhism, like the the Four Noble Truths are life is suffering, suffering is caused by grasping. You can free yourself from grasping, and you do that through the Eightfold Path. Grasping is the cause of suffering. Grasping is the thing that causes um, discomfort, not the parasitic processing that he's talking about. What the Buddha meant by dukkha is a much more subtle thing than the
Hmm.
patterns that he's talking about. Um, and to say that the goal of practice is to have a better grip or a right-handed grip feels very much to miss the mark for me because, first of all, he holds up the right-handed grip as opposed to right concentration being like morally right, you know? And so he's like, well, it doesn't mean morally right. It means having a good grip on concentration or livelihood or whatever. And I would argue that the word right there is meant to be understood as sort of objectively correct and aligned with with wisdom. It's not a grip. It's right like a straight line is right. It's right like the right way to go about something. It's not morally correct to lay a foundation before you build a house. And neither is it like gripping some concept correctly. It's just how you go about doing it.
Hmm.
There's no gripping.
The
There's no
best way.
yeah. There's no enforcement. I mean, I'm not even sure I quite understand what he means by right-handed grip there, but what if you're left-handed, you know? Um, but yeah, that was the whole idea of gripping was one of the things because in Buddhism, let's see if I can look this up really quick. I think I had saved some pages. In Buddhism, one of the things that I find really helpful is looking up the original sort of etymology of the oh, I didn't save that one. Shucks. The etymology of the original Pali words. So like dukkha is from the Pali.
Hmm.
Um, not Sanskrit. Sanskrit's a little bit different. Most Buddhist phrases come from Pali, which is sort of after Buddhism had left India and moved into Southeast Asia.
Hmm.
Um, I think that's where they spoke Pali, if I'm remembering correctly. And most of what we now have of early Buddhist scripture was preserved. The originals were preserved in Southeast Asia. So the Theravada tradition in Southeast Asia, Burma, Thailand, not Vietnam so much, although I'm sure there's some there too. But that's a certain form of Buddhism.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
that's sort of the earliest form of Buddhism that people historically think map onto most closely what the Buddhists taught.
Hmm.
What you have in just as a brief aside, what you have in like China and Japan, and throughout the world, but Chinese Buddhism. So you think like the Shaolin Temple as an example of that. Japanese Buddhism, Zen, obviously, and a strong part of the Tibetan tradition. That's all considered Mahayana, so it's a later development, hundreds of years after the Buddha's time. It's a further flowering of the teaching.
Hmm.
And then you have the Vajrayana, which is definitely what Tibet is all about. and there's some Vajrayana other places. There's a strong school. There's a school of it in Japan. What was it? Shingon Buddhism is Buddhist, sort of Buddhist Vajrayana, and
Mm,
that's a further elaboration of the teaching. So it's sort of like a third flowering of it.
mm,
And so if we're talking about the meaning of the core terms, we want to go back to that original first expression from
mm,
the Buddha. Um, and if we talk about dukkha, I will say Vervaeke does mention this. He says dukkha is the etymology of it is to an uncomfortable axle wheel. So yeah, axle on a wheel, the wheel's turning. If the hole that the axle is in is not smooth, if there's something sticking in there, every time the wheel turns, you sort of have this bump or this jolt, and you've got this uncomfortable ride.
mm,
And dukkha just means that kind of discomfort.